Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PowettPlay Podcast. It's me, Jordan Shannon, and as always, I'm joined by Kieran Powell here. How are you, Kai?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you very much. How's your day been?
Very good. Okay weather. Sad part, father-in-law leaving, but he's got to get back to work, and so do I as the chairman of selectors. I'm here to announce our test team for the first test against Australia. So everyone's working away.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, no further ado, I'll get stuck into the 17, sorry, the 18-man squad that you've sort of named, and you've gone with Craig Brathwaite, John Campbell, Alec Aanes, Brandon King, Justin Graves, Shay Hope, Roston Chase, Kemar Roach, Jamel Warrican, Jaden Seals, Shamar Joseph, Kevlin Anderson, Kevin Hodge, Alzari Joseph, Tevin Imlak, Jason Mohammed, Shafane Rutherford, and Johan Lane. Big squad.
Big squad. I expect the board to go with probably the first 15.
Right,
Um,
okay.
I think obviously Sherfane Rutherford is he's obviously not going to make the team. I don't think they'll select him. But
Right, okay.
if you're looking at guys that have been performing, you're saying that guys don't necessarily need to play first class cricket to play for the West Indies.
Yeah,
You've seen Sherfane his last week in the IPL state that he doesn't want to be seen as a hitter. In an interview, he wants to be seen as a batsman that can bat
yeah,
higher up in the order and contribute big innings towards teams' overall success.
yeah,
Also, coupled with the fact that for me, you look at his technique, his temperament across both 50 over and 20 over formats. You know, he bats
yeah,
with a proper technique. He's not slugging, but he's still able to score at a high rate without taking undue risk. I think that he's someone that has shown excellent ability to adapt in various conditions,
yeah,
from Australia to Sri Lanka to coming into the last one day match in England, and obviously his exploits in the T20 World Cup in the Caribbean, and he's from the Caribbean, so in the Caribbean on a whole. I think that he is someone that the West Indies should be looking to invest into in all formats because I think that he has what is required to be successful across formats. And you look at his stat to 50 over cricket. He's played 13 matches and he's got seven scores of 50 plus and an average of 70.
yeah.
So if you're looking for guys that can be converted into long format cricketers, I think Sherfane at number six is the ideal spot and cricketer for the West Indies. But I don't expect that they would have gone into that level of thinking. But he's in my team, which means that he's on his way to being in the test team.
Yeah. Um, Reading that for obviously people watching, I'm going to put the 11 above. The 1 to 11 that we've gone through, is that what you see being the 1 to 11?
I think for the first test match, yes. Having said that, I think that for me, Alec Aanes will be
Yeah, that's what I was going to question.
on thin ice, of those names that are named. Obviously, in the regional season, he hasn't produced anything.
No,
He's been playing in these 18 matches and hasn't produced anything as well.
no.
I think he's in solely off of the fact that he has scored a few scores throughout the last few test series, which I think, you know, you can't drop someone on domestic form, but you do want them to dominate. But he's not dominating internationally as well, and you can hear the cries across the Caribbean of people getting frustrated with the way he's getting out, and he doesn't seem to be valuing his wicket in the sense that he doesn't seem to be valuing batting for long periods of time. He just seems to be going about his innings as though um, it's sort of a millennial lifestyle,
Yeah,
in terms of batting as opposed to valuing, I guess, his wicket and staying at the crease
yeah,
for long periods of time and converting the stats that he gets into big scores. So
yeah.
I think that he has probably one, two test matches max to get a big score, or else he could be on the chopping block.
I know we spoke off air a couple of times about the impacts being dropped can have on you. I think that, and I know you've said you've gone with that he starts the first test and you said, two tests. I think now would be the right time to give him that break. And it might give him that, the frustration. absolutely being dropped from that will have an impact on you mentally, and I appreciate that. But it might give him that time to, go back to the basics and work out what he needs to do to make that change. Because sometimes you can get swarmed into it, and before you know it, you're into the third test, and then you're still scratching around and you still haven't got anything. And then, as we've discussed with the calendar in the Caribbean, he won't play any first class cricket or go again in terms of from a 4 day perspective or 5 day till the new year, if
Yep,
we're looking at it.
until
Yeah.
next year.
You
Next
know,
year.
so he's kind of, I understand what you mean, and you're giving him the benefit of the doubt, which I think is, shows that you've got faith in his ability. But it's concerning that if he doesn't get it right, the gap again, I don't know, it's tricky. I understand what you're trying to do.
I mean, yeah, I mean, left to me, I would have given him that break now as well, but I do think he will be selected. I think he should be selected for the first test match and see how he goes, and then you made that call because he has had a bit of a run in the team as
Yeah.
well. So, you give him, the final opportunity to stake a claim. And as I always say, like, I mean, people think that getting dropped is the end of the world or the end of your career. Like he's a
Yeah.
young boy. Like he's gonna have time to go away, work on his game, and come back a better player, a stronger player for the opportunity at an early age
Yeah.
and being able to go and work on his game, so he can be able to be more productive. But hopefully, as I said, if given the opportunity, that's not the case, and he goes and scores a big score,
Yeah.
and then
Fantastic. Yeah.
his career takes off in the way that everyone thinks that it should do.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, I believe as well, there's more success stories post being dropped than negatives from post being dropped, in terms of how you respond to that. So I don't think it's the end of the world, as you say. The other thing I wanted to address is you've obviously got somewhat, Brandon King at four. You've spoke about him, before from a perspective of him doing that in the 50 over format. What do you believe he had? Do you feel, sorry, the skills that he has to bat for at Test cricket?
Brandon King's a mid-order player. I think he's being asked to do something that is not within his natural remit, and is doing as best as he can. But I
Yeah.
think that at number four is where you could potentially see the best of him. Obviously, coming in with a semi-new ball, and having the opportunity to bat for long periods of time. He does have a relatively good first class record when you look at Caribbean standards. I mean, the pitches that we play on the outfields, etc., aren't great. And you look at his numbers. He hasn't played much first class cricket in the past few years, but this season you would have seen that he'd have gone back and played, I think, probably 5 games for Jamaica. So you also have to
Yeah.
read into, obviously, Sammy sorts of gives things away. Brandon King is one of the players heading back early
Yeah.
from the
Of
tour of
course.
the UK.
Yeah, of course.
So unless he's not in the test team, there's no reason for him to
No.
have been heading back early. So it's a clear giveaway, and I'm not opposed to it because, as I said, I'm a very big Brandon King fan. I think Brandon King has immense ability, given the right opportunities in the right position. So I think we will be seeing Brandon King making his test debut at number four, and I think it's a good call.
Yeah, yeah. And with him going back, and I want to go back to the Alec Aanes conversation we had. The benefit of Sammy and Roston going back after after the T20s is that from an environment perspective, they're going to be around that squad as well, so they can see them from, especially Alec, in terms of from a body language perspective. How is he in that mindset? How is he feeling? Because you can tell by someone's body language how they're sort of feeling, and ultimately that they might make a call based on how he actually is.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope his body language is good because getting another opportunity to play for the West Indies, and
Yeah, true.
we think about it. The West Indies, in terms of its cricket playing population, is about 6 to 7 million people. Of that, you've only got eight first class
Yeah,
teams, so that's what 88 cricketers vying for
yeah,
11 spots from a region of 6 to 8 million people. So you are truly blessed
of course.
each and every time you get the opportunity to take the field for the West Indies. So body language should never be something
No,
that is even thought about or talked about.
no. And then going back into the lineup, you roster. Sorry, well, obviously you've got Roston in there, no doubt, but obviously Shay a bit lower in that middle order. Are you assuming, or what's your thoughts on Shay definitely returning then into Test cricket?
I think so. You look at the first class season again, Shay would have played for Barbados, which he hasn't done for quite some time. I think it was a clear giveaway when he batted at number six because Shay's not going to play for Barbados at any point in time and bat at number six. Shay pretty much dictates where he
Yeah,
bats in that
yeah,
team on a normal basis, whether it be three or four. And he's got double centuries for Barbados, and he's got a pretty good for the record for Barbados. So I think that was a giveaway in terms of he was told to at least get a game of red ball cricket under your belt
yeah,
with test series coming up in mind. I know people may be wondering, well, why is he not going back early whilst Rosson and Brandon King are? But Shay has just been made
yeah,
T20 captain. So it's his first two assignments as T20 captain. So unlike the other two who can afford to miss the series, he needs to be here to start off his reign as T20 captain. And I think that's why he'll be obviously going back at the end of the Ireland series. But I do think that they will have him sort of doing cross training where he may do some practice with the white ball and then do some practice with the red ball in preparation for the Test match series.
yeah, yeah. No, can't argue with that. In terms of the openers, I know they've had we spoke before about Craig, and then you've obviously put him opening the batting with John Campbell. Do you think is that pretty much a shoo-in for them two to open the batting?
I reckon so. I think obviously John Campbell has come back into cricket in the past year. You look at what's happened. He's been invited to a West Indies batting camp before the 4-day season started. He was a part of the West Indies A team um, before he got called up as a
Yeah,
replacement to Ireland. So I mean, he's everything has been trending towards John Campbell coming straight back into
yeah,
the West Indies team, and obviously Sammy looking to play a particular brand and style of cricket. I think that you're not gonna make sort of a change where you get rid of Craig Brathwaite yet. I think Craig is probably on thin ice looking at his stats over the past, I guess, 10 to 15 test matches.
yeah,
So he's going to need to get some scores. Obviously, know that he's not captain because there's that level of protection has been stripped away in terms of you must being able to play because
yeah,
you're the captain. So it's now solely dependent on performances. So that's something that he's going to obviously have to keep in mind. I'm not sure how much further past 100 test matches he gets with that in mind, but it's I mean solely down to him and
yeah,
his performances. I think that Mikhail Louis has been given a run. Um, I do think that he will be in and around the team or the squad or the
right,
selector's thoughts, however, because you look at the A team series, for example, he was selected and he did make a half century and a 30 in the second innings. So he is keeping himself in the hunt, in the
yeah,
fight. And that's exactly what I'm saying to people. Like getting dropped doesn't mean your career is over. You
no,
still have opportunities to go away and work on your game and come back. And obviously, Michael Lewis is still fighting for his place in the team. It's debatable who's going to open. This is
yeah.
obviously just
Well,
my thinking.
yeah, of course, yeah,
Exactly. It's just my chain of thought.
yeah,
But you can see a young man there that is fighting to keep a position that he's been occupying active for himself, and
yeah,
that's what you want from guys. That hunger and that willingness to go and fight based on not being performing well previously or up to the standard that they would want to, and then now getting additional opportunities and trying to keep themselves in the hunt. So that's exactly what you hope
yeah,
for from other young players as well.
yeah. And then you got Justin at number five again. Is there any way where you see somebody else coming in that middle order potentially? And if so, who would it be?
Well, as I said, for me, the only outsider I would see coming in that would make sense is a Sherfane Rutherford. I mean, obviously, I've got a Kavim Hodge and a Kevlin Anderson named in the squad as well. I think they're not going to play a Kavim Hodge and an Alec Aanes in the same 11, given the fact that a Brandon King and a Shay Hope are, and
Yeah,
obviously a Ross and Chase are expected all to come back into the team.
yeah,
So that's where those two younger guys would miss out. And then
yeah,
obviously, for me, as I said, I think that the outsider that should be given an opportunity as well is a chauffeur in Rutherford. So I mean, those are the guys juggling for opportunities. I think for me, Kevlin Anderson is more so a backup for Alec Aanes at number three, if
Yeah,
that doesn't work out. And then you have a Hodge
yeah.
um, as a middle order backup option as well, whether that be four, five, six, whatever the case is.
Mm. Do you know what? When we're discussing this, I know we mentioned it a few whenever we spoke a few weeks ago. It's good to see this competition for places. It's good to see that competitiveness now here, where we're looking at squeeze. You know, where would you fit him in, and how would you fit that? Ultimately, now there's going to be some disappointment with some of the group of players who miss out. So it's down to them to then obviously go and get the bit between the teeth and really sort of show some, put themselves back in that picture, which is what we want from a West Indies standpoint. You want that competition for places, which is good. I want to go on to the bowlers now. I've mentioned it, or I definitely mentioned it in a couple of podcasts in terms of the Ireland series and the England series for Shamar Joseph. You've got him in there. Has he? I think when I looked at it, I think he's bowled 46 overs this calendar year. He had 123 over spell in one of the first class games, and then he's not had much else. And obviously, how does he go into that first test with very little overs in his legs?
Oh, he goes into it is underprepared. Um, 100% underprepared. I've stated this on numerous occasions now. This guy's making, in my opinion, a lot of bad decisions at an early stage of his career in terms of choosing the wrong options for him long term as opposed to short term gains.
Yeah,
Someone with his talent needs to be playing cricket and continuing to learn his game and develop his skills.
yeah,
You look at a Jaden Seals, for example, who played a bit of T20 earlier on in his career and still plays in the CPL. But let's not forget that Jaden Sears was the leading wicket taker in an edition of the Sri Lanka Premier League that he played a few years back,
cool.
but has chosen to play county cricket and continue
Exactly.
to harness and hone his skills that will set him up for long term towards the middle and back end of his career. So I think that Shamar Joseph will definitely be undercooked. What I'm hoping for and expecting to see is that from sort of halfway through the second test match is when he will sort of come into his own,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I get
probably
that.
be a force towards the back end of the second test match and the third test match,
Yeah,
as opposed to be firing straight away. We've seen how he's bowled in the limited overs formats, but having said that, test match cricket is a obviously longer form of the game where guys are a lot more patient,
yeah,
so he can get away with bowling a line and length and ease into a
yeah,
spell and hopefully ease into a bowling rhythm and bowling fitness. But that's not necessarily the situation you'd hope for going into a big test match series like this, where you were able to get a victory in Australia and draw the series, and then now you're coming at home with everyone looking at you and the Australians looking at you for revenge as well,
yeah,
mind you,
definitely.
um, and being underprepared. But hopefully, he gets that rust off quicker than we expect, and he's ready to go for this series, and he produces what we know he's capable of because he's a match winner in his day.
Yeah. Is there a way for Alzari to force his way in between now and with from a T20 perspective, and obviously continuing his form in the 50 overs? Is there a way he forces his way into that 11?
For me, if they go with four fast bowlers, depending on the nature of the pitch, which would mean that a Jamil Warrican, who's the vice captain, would
Yeah,
miss out, and Rosson would be the only spinner. Um, Or again, it could be a situation where Alzari is preferred over Shamar Joseph because of current bowling form as well.
yeah, that is.
And Shamar
Yeah,
could be the one that misses out because of the lack of match fitness at this point
yeah,
in time. And we see what Alzari is doing over here at the moment. He's bowling pretty quickly, making guys' lives very uncomfortable, and doing a lot in terms of getting wickets as well. So
yeah,
his experience will certainly come into play, and there'll be a tight toss up between Alzari and Shamar. There'll be a Joseph toss up
yeah,
for 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 the final spot in that 11. I'm not sure which Joseph is going to win, but I guess it solely depends on composition of the team, and the conditions. What type of pitch is going to be produced in Barbados, because you've also still got Justin Graves in the
Yeah,
team who's another seam bowling option.
yeah,
So do you need five seam bowling options and just one spinner, or do you want four seam bowling options and two spin bowling options? So,
yeah,
it's just a lot of I guess intricacies to think about, but it's mostly down to conditions. And for me, if I were the West Indies, I would be asking the groundsmen for two extremely flat pitches for the first two test matches to sort of balance out the series and get some miles, some yards into the Australian bowlers and the Australian team's legs.
yeah,
Sort of similar to what they did in that series a few years back when England came out to the Caribbean and the first two test matches were just dull, long draws,
yeah,
and then go for a victory at the end of the series when Australia are tired. It's hot. You're coming off of a World Test Championship final.
yeah,
This is going to be the fourth test in a few weeks. Obviously, having to travel as well from the UK to the Caribbean, and you take all these things into consideration. So you try and tire them out as much as possible, and
yeah.
then go for a win at the end.
Yeah, I think when you look into it, that's where that long term, the strategy speak, feed come from Cricket West Indies needs to be fed into that because the way you've explained that there, that's the way you go and win a series, and that's what our home advantage is all about, really. And trying to think, looking more into obviously the squad you've featured, obviously Tevin Im like Jason Mohammed and Kevin Hodge, Kevlin Anderson, Johan Lane, and Shafane Rutherford as I'd say as your wild card pick as such. Um, do what's the reason with sort of your bigger squad that you sort of announced really as such? What was the reason why you made it as big as it was?
I think that, for too long, we've often gone with, let's say, 13 or 14 players at
Yeah,
home for the sole fact of saying that we're at home. So if we want to fly someone in, we can do it quickly. But it's more so down to cost and I guess not wanting to, I guess, pay someone a salary because
yeah,
they're not in a squad. But I just think that given the performances and the options around, if you're trying to build a team, you're trying to build a core group of players, it would
yeah,
be nice to have them all around in that ecosystem because outside of the 11, you've still got seven guys that you can have um, do a mixture of substitute fielders running the drinks and still having guys having hits at the back in a competitive environment against good quality opposition, all vying for a place in the
yeah,
playing 11. So that that if someone is to get injured or they're out of form or whatever the case is, you've got guys on the ground that have been having high quality training as opposed to being at home and depending on let's say a franchise or their home territory to get them ready because there's no first class cricket on in the Caribbean at the moment. So they're not going to be having that active game time. So why not have that full squad on hand so that you can have everyone prepared and ready in the event of any casualties?
yeah. And also, as we mentioned throughout the show, there's obviously a couple of question marks over players' forms with both bat and ball. So I suppose naturally making that squad a little bit bigger gives that environment, like you said, it's the environment side of things. Do you know when the squad's going to be announced?
Well, outside of our official announcement, I don't know when CW's unofficial announcement is going to be, but I would assume sometime within the next week to 10 days.
Right, okay. Because what we'll do is I'll be interested to see what the comparisons, as we like to do, and then we're going to we're going to preview the series because I've got a few bits I'd like to cover from Australian perspective as well, really. So I think we'll touch base nearer the first test once we know the squad selections from both sides. Actually, I think have Australia named? No, they haven't named theirs at all. So we'll obviously.
Australia have named their squad.
I thought they have, haven't they? Yeah,
They've named the squad for the
for
World Test
both,
Championship
and then
final
yeah,
and
that's it.
for
Sorry,
this
yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah, I thought they did.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think that's good to get your take on that series. I'm looking forward to it. Really, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes, and we'll continue our debriefs post game and pre game to cover it all. So this is your content. This is where you listen to. This is where you tune in. A few of you heard it here first moments, and they do like to take Kyron's insights on board. So let's see how it all unfolds.
definitely. And looking forward to previewing the T20 series as well that's coming up because I think that's going to be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope everything's going okay taking your father-in-law to the airport. As we do know, the traffic around the London area can be a nightmare.
I hope we don't have to end up on Boris bikes as well, pedaling across London.
Oh God, yeah, not ideal. Anyway, catch you soon.
Cheers.